It begins not with thunder, but with silence. In Egypt, rain was a stranger, a traveler who passed only once in a great while, leaving no trace behind. Yet the land bloomed, the fields shimmered gold with grain, the palms bore heavy fruit, and the people, brown with sun and soil, lived as though the sky had always been kind. There are places in the world where life awaits for the mercy of clouds. Egypt was not one of them. The people here learned long ago that their true sky lay beneath them. The Nile, dark and patient, running north like a vein through the desert's heart. It flooded each year without fail, fed by storms far beyond their sight, in mountains they would never climb. When it rose, they rejoiced. When it receded, they wept. Imagine that rhythm, not praying for rain, but for flood, not watching the sky, but the river's edge. The Egyptians built their lives on this certainty, a rhythm of water and dust, of growth and rest. They knew the precise moment when to plant, when to harvest, when to feast. It was not a chance, it was a partnership, an ancient promise kept between land and people. Theirs was a civilization that mastered time through patience. Without rain, they learned to make water flow where it was needed. Without storms, they created their own tides. And so the question rises from the sand and the river alike. How did they grow so much, with sky so empty? The answer, like the Nile, went slowly, through temples and markets, through fields that glittered like mirrors beneath the sun, through prayers whispered to God to govern flood and rain alike. Every Egyptian knew the river's moods. It was their calendar, their clock, their god. They watched for the first well of dark water at Elephantine Island, where priests would stand and mark the flood's rise. When the river began to breathe higher, the news traveled north like fire. Life was about to begin again. They did not call it a flood with fear. They call it a ket, the inundation, a word heavy with gratitude. The Nile was not a destroyer here. It was the giver of soil, the mother of all grain. When it spilled over its banks, it brought with it a gift, black silt from the far south, fertile and fine, laying it gently over the fields like a blanket. No need for rain, no need for clouds. The water had done its journey long before it reached them. At dawn, farmers would wade knee-deep into the fields, feeling the cool mud press between their toes. They carried baskets of seed, barley, emmer wet, flax, and cast them by hand across the still wet ground. Then came the waiting. The sun would dry what the river left, sealing the moisture in, coaxing the grain to rise. The Egyptians learned that they did not need to chase water, they only had to read its pattern. They built their lives not around rain, but around the river's slow heartbeat, and in that rhythm, they found the secret to eternity. The Nile was never cruel, it simply demanded respect, observation, and devotion, and the people, generation after generation, gave it freely. The Egyptians became engineers of nature. They dug canals that curved like veins through the earth, carrying water far from the river banks. With patient hands, they raised the shadoof, a long pole balanced on a beam, with a bucket at one end and a counterweight at the other. You can almost see them at dawn, bare feet in the mud, pulling water upward in a graceful rhythm. Down, scoop, lift, swing, pour. It was music, the sound of water falling back into throes, of clay pots being filled, of oxen pulling the wooden plow through soft earth. Even the smallest movements held meaning. They knew exactly how to angle a channel so the current would not rush too fast. They shaped the land so the water would linger just long enough to feed the roots. They learned from the desert itself, its patience, its geometry, its quiet law. The same wind that carved dunes helped shape their understandings of flow and balance. The Nile's flood was brief, but they stretched its gift across months, storing what they needed in small basins and ditches, guided by the wisdom of countless hands before them. Where others saw emptiness, they saw design. The desert silence sharpened their minds. The river's pulse guided their tools. Together, they made an entire nation bloom without the mercy of the sky. Their year was divided not by months but by seasons. Three great breaths of the Nile: Aket, the flooding; Beret, the growing; and Shemu, the harvest. Each season flowed into the next, as natural as the river itself. When Beret came, the land was alive. Farmers walked the fields barefoot, guided by the stars above and the memory of their father's hands. They used wooden plows tipped with copper, pulled by oxen whose bells jingled softly as they worked. The smell of wet soil and fresh cut reeds filled the air. Children scattered seed, laughing, while women sang songs that kept time with the swing of the plow. Each movement was slow, deliberate, and reverent. The Egyptians knew that haste displeased the land. Their work was not toil, it was communion. They did not plant for themselves alone, but for the gods who watched over every field. Offerings of bread and beer were set by the water's edge to please Hapi, the spirit of the Nile, and Renenutet, the goddess of harvest. When Shemu arrived, the air skimmered with gold, the fields bowed heavy with grain. Workers cut stalks with curved sickles, their songs rising in the heat. Threshing floors filled with chaff and laughter, and the air smelled of dust and joy. From sunrise to sunset, the people moved in rhythm, steady, patient, eternal. In the evenings, as the light faded, they would sit beneath palm trees, drink cool beer, and watch the last glimmer of the sun fade into the dunes. The land slept, the people rested, and the river dreamed of another flood. Egyptian life was not only work and water. When the harvest came, so did the festivals, long nights of celebration and gratitude. The markets filled with traders from every village. Clay jars of honey and oil gleamed in the sunlight. Baskets overflowed with dates, onions, and figs. There was color everywhere. Dyes of indigo and saffron, copper tools catching the light, the shimmer of fish laid out on woven mats. To live in a land without rain was to treasure abundance when it came. Nothing was wasted. Grain became bread, dates became wine, flax became linen. The people were the land itself, light, breathable, and soft against the skin. Even their temples smelled of it, smoke and bread, lotus and earth. At night, the villagers danced. Fires burned near the riverbank, their light reflected in the slow water. Musicians played flutes and sistrums, rattles of bronze and shell that shimmered like stars in sound. Men clapped, women sang, and laughter rolled through the warm air. It was not just celebration, it was a remembrance. They thanked the river for its gift and the desert for its silence. They thanked the gods for a year survived and the promise of another to come. These moments of joy were part of the cycle, the balance that kept the world steady. For in Egypt, even happiness was an offering. The Egyptians were never alone in their labor. Oxen and donkeys, cats and ibises, frogs and beetles, all were part of the rhythm. The animals worked beside them, lived beside them, and were buried beside them. The Egyptians saw no division between human and creature. Both were threads in the same design. Cats kept the granary safe from mice and snakes. They were loved so deeply that to harm one was unthinkable. Cattle pulled the plows, their slow strength turning the soil year after year. Birds nested near the fields, eating insects that might harm the crops. Even the sacred scarab, the beetle that rolled its spear of sand, became a symbol of renewal, of the earth forever reshaping itself. The Nile's bank teemed with life, crocodiles gliding in the shadows, hippos staring in the reeds, herons rising at dawn. Every movement of the natural world was divine. When floods came, fish filled the water. When they receded, the people gathered them with woven nets. The river fed them twice, once with water, once with life. Each creature was a teacher. From the ibis, they learned patience. From the ox, endurance. From the beetle, the secret of rebirth. To live without rain was not deprivation, it was adaptation, an art guided by the observation and respect. In Egypt, survival was harmony. The people lived within cycles so perfect they seemed divine. The desert's dryness preserved, the river's flood renewed, the sun's heat ripened, and the night's cold restored. Every force that could destroy was also the force that sustained. They built canals not as defiance, but as dialogue, listening to how the river wanted to move, guiding it gently rather than fighting it. They timed their planting by the stars, their harvest by the breath of wind. Even their hearts beat with the rhythm of water and light. When drought threatened, they trusted the cycle. They prayed to Hapi, to Osiris, to Renenutent. They sang, not in fear, but in gratitude, for they had already been given everything they needed. They knew that the river, like the sun, would return. To live without rain was to live in faith, not blind, but earned. The Egyptians had seen the same pattern for 1,000 years. The water rise, the water fall, the green return. Time was not a line to hem, but a circle. And within that circle, everything was provided. Now, the day ends, the fields darken, the wind cools. Families gather by small lamps, eating bread still warm from the oven. The children fall asleep to the sound of the river moving just beyond the door. They have no need to look for clouds. The stars above are enough. They trust the earth beneath them, the same black soil that had fed their ancestors for generations. They knew that tomorrow will come with the same quiet certainty: sun, water, labor, peace. The Egyptians were so good at farming without rain because they listened to the land, to the water, to the silence between seasons. They built their lives not on chance, but on understanding. And through that understanding, they found eternity. Their temples still stand, their fields are long turned to dust, yet their wisdom endures. The lesson remains: the abundance is not born of rain but of patience and faith in the unseen rhythm of the world. The desert sleeps. The Nile moves slowly through the dark. Above, the stars burn clear, their reflections trembling on the water's skin. You can almost feel it, the heartbeat of a world that learned to live without rain, to bloom without storm, to trust what is steady instead of what is fleeting. Breathe with it now, slow, gentle, eternal. The river continues its long journey north, as it always has, as it always will. The people rest, the gods are silent, the water glows faintly in the moonlight, and you too drift now, into stillness, into memory, into sleep.